on the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there is having themselves a great day. Hiding in the shadows, lurking in the shadows. It's kind of how this game has been played lately. There's a lot of outward push. The media and everyone else under the sun is really just banging away at what they claim it is, what they claim the problems are. You know, every other week or every 6 months, you know, it's a new thing. First it was the Russian collusion, right? And then we've had Trump's done all sorts of horrible things with different women. We've had just illegality after illegality, right? This is constant barrage of things that he's done wrong. And from the shadows, working quietly behind, been trying to accomplish a great number of things. Put people in place and power, taken people out of positions. And he's kind of tried to move along almost like he kind of knows how this plays out. And I really say that in the sense that Donald Trump's not playing the standard president game that so many presidents have before, so many Manchurian candidates like our friend renegade Barack Obama. But Trump's actually, I mean, he comes from money, of course. Yes, there's all those things. And, you know, do I think that's great? No, but could I imagine how anyone else could have become president that wasn't from money? No, I don't think so. I don't think the establishment would have just let Joe Schmo, Dan RadioStyle, run for president and win, right? That doesn't happen. So from the shadows, from the, yeah, no, I'm here to do X, Y, and Z, to the, here's what I'm actually going to do, a lot of this game has been played. We've had a lot of actors on both sides that claim to the cameras to be here for the American people, and then behind the cameras do all sorts of horrendous things, make deals with the monsters that make up our society. And so this is some of the stuff that Trump's been fighting against. And there are a lot of times where things perceived or seem to be not working in our favor, not working advantageously for us. And I think some of that's, one, because it's not just being broadcasted from Trump. We're very used to leaks and a lot of former administrations. Two, the mainstream media, Twitter, and all this other stuff really does tend to amplify a certain part of this voice. Most of the people that are really supportive of Trump, or at least supportive of not running off the left side edge of the planet, there's this silent majority that is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and is already a majority. Now, from the shadows, again, it's just a couple parts of some of the posts that come out today are challenging, but I think they make sense. And I think we're starting to take the mask off, like the Masked Singer, for those of you that watch those Korean pop TV shows, right? But that Masked Singer, that concept of, you know, you've got this amazingness going on behind the scenes, but you don't necessarily know who the players are. And I think we're starting to see some of them. And the ones that are probably going to turn around or be tied into the direction that Durham's currently going, some of the first unsealed indictments that are coming, all of these things are really going to start to come to play. 4600 is where we left off. We've got Sunlight Kills V2 Q. Now we're kind of respinning this whole Sunlight Kills. Now the first time they were saying Sunlight Kills, I think that was V1. Had a lot more to do with killing the virus, right? That the light actually helped kill it, and if it was hot and humid, it died more quickly. But what V2 has to do with is being in the light, having the truth be disinfected by the sunlight. Catherine Herridge, no surprise probably to anybody that's been following any of this stuff for any length of time. Newly declassified records, again, Lindsey Graham. We've talked about this a bit recently as well, but she's kind of putting a new little spin on it. But this declassified record shows the system was blinking red. Blinking red, like there was a blinking red light above the Steele dossier in early 2017, but it was used twice more to renew surveillance warrants. Now, they say twice more, and we've seen 3 times in some of the documentation, so I'm guessing, and I haven't dug into this deep enough, but probably one of those times they renewed, they might not have used the dossier. They might have used something else, but I'm sure there's questions around that. And again, how far would you have gotten into this investigation if you didn't have illegal stuff or fake documents that you were allowed to continue to rest your laurels on, if you will, or continue to lean on and say, oh, no, this dossier, it's straight up. And they're like, no, it just things had about 85 holes shot at, and you're like, oh, this dossier? How about this dossier? It's like, come on, man, I saw you move that behind your back. That's the same dossier, you silly Willie. Yeah, we'll let you go ahead and approve that a couple more times before we actually call you on it. Now, Catherine Herridge, again, talking about some of these pictures that we've seen in the past, omitted pages, prior relationships with another U.S. agency, right? Just the standard stuff. We're well aware of what's going on with all this. So again, a lot of attention was already on this being obvious early January 2017. That time frame is going to come into play. So remember that, January 2017, early, obviously right when Trump's taking office. All of this stuff is running crazily down the path. Now, why I say take a little bit of notice is Christopher Wray. This is obviously Wikipedia, one of the most trustworthy sources on the face of the earth, but I think in this case it will serve me well. Christopher Wray was put into the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation's position on June 7th, 2017. So about halfway through the year, Christopher Wray was brought on board. Now again, post 4601, these things matter. Sunlight Kills, V2. Once again, we're talking about how Sunlight Kills. Where's this coming from? Well, TechnoFog's got a few posts that are certainly worth looking into, and the timelines, I think, are going to start to come into play here. Now, flying under the radar, Jennifer Boone. She's an FBI official who oversaw FISA. She seems to be tied into a few places in rather interesting ways. So one, she was calling out the improper use of the Bruce Orr as the Steele intermediary. She felt that there's something not quite right with that. She was also calling out the FBI's interview of Steele's primary subsource. And she was promoted by Director Wray after the FBI learned of the FISA issues. So again, Jennifer C. Boone, named special agent in charge of the Baltimore field office, right? This is back in June 14th, 2019, 7 days after Wray is in office. So on June 14th, 2019, when she was promoted, and I believe she was promoted to the Deputy Assistant Director in the Counterintelligence Division at the FBI headquarters, and this was done prior to that, just prior to that, she was returned to Washington as the Section Chief of the Counterproliferation Center in early 2016. Now, what's interesting, so obviously, June 14, 2019, she's doing all this Deputy Assistant Directory counterintelligence stuff. In 2018, Ms. Boone was named the Special Agent in charge of Cyber and Counterintelligence at the Los Angeles field office. Los Angeles, remember California. Remember all the information and dirt that they were probably trying to dig up around California, around a lot of these people that are out in California, Schiff and Pelosi, and like a lot of the people that have been making serious amounts of noise come from California. So again, she was sent out there at one point to try to start to wrap her arms around a certain few things. So a lot going on around what was going on with Jennifer. Very interesting. Boone was apparently also informed of serious concerns about Orr's connections. That's the contact of a closed source. Steele through Orr was out of the norm. He didn't normally do that. He didn't normally contact somebody of a source like that through an intermediary. He usually directly interviewed them. It was weird to kind of have that go-between. So according to the subsource 3, he had two main concerns, or SSA 3, I don't know. Orr and Nellie Orr's connection to Steele and Fusion GPS, the latter of which appeared to have political connections. So she didn't like the fact that Orr and Nellie Orr's connection to Steele, the fact that we've got this married couple. And then on top of that, there's this tie into Fusion GPS, which has already been documented and shown to be tied into the Democratic National Committee, right? So he really didn't like the fact that, one, we got this husband-wife duo that are talking to this guy. Interesting. And on top of that, probably already somewhat aware, and there's been suggestions that maybe these two have spent time on the farm. They both spoke Russian, right? They one of the alphabet agencies they were probably a part of prior to the FBI. But again, the political side of it. And then two, the FBI's continual contact with Steele through Orr about such a sensitive matter, particularly because such contact with a closed source, it was just out of the norm. You didn't do that. Now, they also call out in this section, it's just right below where it was out of the norm, just continuing on. He told us that the members of his team shared these concerns, and he expressed them to his supervisor, DAD Jennifer Boone. So he told her, he said, hey, this is what's going on. And the SSA-3 stated that each time that Orr asked to meet with him, he consulted Boone and was directed to attend the meeting. So Boone was in the loop. Boone was trying to glean information about what was going on, and apparently was kind of our little working in the shadows friend that maybe was on the outside acting like she was part of the deep state. Yeah, I hate Trump too, and then going in and actually digging around. But this continues. This becomes more noteworthy now because Boone supervised the team who determined the dossier's sources. So right off the bat, they were able to investigate the primary document, who the sources were, and were very quickly able to come to some conclusions. Now, this includes the newly released and disastrous interview of the Steele primary subsource that undermined the FISA warrants. Now, recently it came out here. Another senior FBI counterintelligence official, Jennifer Boone, was supervising a team in charge of determining the source of information for the dossier and of handling the wiretap targeting Mr. Page, according to people familiar with the investigation. Now, Mr. Strzok ended up being removed from this investigation because it was later found that he had all sorts of text messages on his work phone that weren't helping out his situation any. Some of you have probably heard of that. Now, Boone also told us that she recalled being told after the primary subsource's interview that the team assessed that Steele may have gotten some of his information from a source other than the primary subsource. Might have gotten some information, but, no big deal. Boone then said that she did not recall being advised that the interview created inconsistencies between Steele and his primary subsource as to facts relied upon in the FISA applications. Boone is calling out that the data didn't match and no one told her there was a problem. Now, my understanding is she kind of figured it out herself and was wondering why nobody was passing this information to her. She's kind of been cued, is a funny way to look at it. So they are thinking Jennifer Boone is a part of the good guys, the white hats, and that Ray maybe put her in place to help us out. Now, a lot of people, and we've got a post coming up where they're going to point it out, are questioning that, but a lot of sources, Q for sure, has said a few times, trust Ray, he's a sleeper. So these are those challenging times. Now, Post 4602 takes a small detour into something that's pretty amazing. There was a recent situation where a number of left-leaning individuals' Twitter accounts were taken over. And I still thought, and have called it out already, that I thought it was odd that it was left-leaning. That obviously implies a side took charge. Now, the way this supposedly played out, and I haven't gotten all the facts yet, and I don't even know if they've been fully released, but there was an inside individual that had likely been approached in one way or another, and either A, offered the tools to an outside individual, which is likely what happened because we've got screenshots, or somehow allowed individuals access to Twitter through this back-end mechanism. Now, once these individuals got in, they were able to pretty much do all sorts of crazy things. They were able to change the Twitter accounts. My guess is at some point, once they figured out how to lock everybody out, they probably went back to a backup prior to everything happening and tried to roll some of this stuff back. They might have even done it selectively. Maybe they did it across the board. But what we're getting here is a little indication that Q was well on board with what happened. He got screenshots even of this particular tool. Now, there's a tool that was shared, and that was one of the things that was so critical about this. There were a number of people that tried to share this on Twitter. And again, this is a Twitter tool. And every single person that shared that Twitter tool was, to my understanding, was banned. Certainly the tweet was blocked or taken away or deleted. But to my understanding, even anyone that tried to share it was banned, like Dunskies. So they don't want people to see this for a number of reasons. Let's talk about a few of them. 1, search blacklist, trends blacklist, compromised, read only, bounced, inactive, protected. Just those very natured buttons there, very simple UI, by the way. Obviously, this was never intended for anybody in the public because it's not pretty. This is a developer's UI. This is a crap UI that you make just to make things easy. You build a couple tools, you attach some code to these buttons, you click a button, you type in a couple numbers, bada boom, bada bing, you're running through it. Now down here, we've also got a list of perms suspended, or bounced, and protected. So again, We've got these different classifications of accounts, obviously, and so some attention's being brought to that. Now, in this particular post, news, socials equals propaganda. And I think it's socials to me. I don't know. To me, when I read this a few times, it means social media in my mind is where I keep going with it. But basically, I think it's a way to say it differently so it doesn't get pulled up in the standard search terms that they look for. But the propaganda that goes behind it, we can start to see that there is a little bit of control over what we can control, what information we can blacklist, what information we can hide behind the imaginary curtain that no one admit exists, but it's there. So they control the propaganda, they control the bias. This is obviously a political tool because tends to be left-leaning people at Twitter that tend to seem to block a lot of the right-leaning content. It can be used as a weapon, as we've obviously seen. Certain accounts have been blocked. Trump had a campaign video blocked. He had his account taken down for a short period of time. We had General Flynn's lawyer's account was taken down for a period of time. Again, obviously they choose who they're going to take down. And they can kind of hide in plain sight. They can hide right behind this. They can hide like, no, it was an accident. Whoops. I mean, again, it's that whole, no one really knows it's happening because it's kind of happening covertly. It's not happening in your face. So you don't see it. So it's kind of camouflaged. It's like folded back within all the things that are going on. So we are one of many vehicles traveling on the information highway. The choice of information has always been yours, meaning in Twitter, a lot of the times when people are shadow banned, if you go looking for them specifically, a lot of the times you can find things. So what you choose to search for is available and you can find it. But when you allow them to feed it to you, when you take your feed, when you take the stories that they provide, when you use the news app that Apple created for you or whatever, and you take their sources of information, you're no longer looking yourself. You're no longer searching yourself. You kind of are giving up those options that you once had. Free thought is a philosophical viewpoint which holds that positions regarding truth should be formed on the basis of logic, reason, and empiricism, rather than authority, tradition, revelation, or dogma. This is truly information warfare. We've got a lot of people that just feel like they should be able to force their opinions on you and force how you can think. And that's just not how America was set up. And certainly all of us have an inalienable freedom that exists within each and every one of us. It was given to us by the Creator, by Source, by God, by Jehovah, by Yahweh, by Allah, whatever. It was given to us. You can't take it away. It's mine. And no one else can either. 4603, domestic is in brackets in bold, obviously the target. So how many are 2016 candidates were illegally surveillanced? Not just how many are candidates for that matter, but how many candidates, period. I mean, again, it's one of those things. I had a friend one time that said, well, if mail-in voting, it also helps Republicans too. And my response back to him was, if it helps anybody inappropriately or if it helps anybody cheat, then it's a bad idea. And he goes, oh, yeah, from that standpoint, I guess you're right. Like, he didn't think of it that way. He was strictly with the ideology of the argument that it just benefits the left. So that's why we shouldn't do mail-in voting. And that was the argument he was attacking. But he didn't realize that if you step back a hair from the bigger picture and look at the whole argument, you realize, oh, no, this is probably not a good idea for either side because it can be taken advantage of. Just sort of an aside, but kind of how it plays out. So how many of the 2016 candidates were illegally surveilled? I'm pretty sure they got an idea. How many journalists were illegally surveilled? That was something that was brought up. And for all these journalists, oh, I'm so special. I'm a journalist. I got my press pass. Let me put it in my pocket, right? Let me wear my little hat that says press on it. Well, how many of them got? How many House members were illegally surveilled? How many Senate members were illegally surveilled? Remember upstream collection. This is where they're getting into a couple things. So 702 was something that they just voted on, I think, super recently. I don't know if it's been voted on in the Senate yet or not. It sounded like it hadn't quite yet, but we'll see. But this has to do with the ability of using the foreign agencies, or the Five Eyes, to spy on Americans. So it's illegal for the United States to spy on its own citizens, at least within its own borders. But it's not illegal for the United States government to say, hey, England, can you spy on this guy that's in our country right now? We think he's a terrorist. Okay, sure. Or, okay, mate, sure. Probably wouldn't say mate, but it doesn't really matter. And they use that 702 section of the bill or the law, the FISA law. That 702 section is the one that allows them to use foreign entities to spy on our own people. So essentially, when you've got 5 good friends, your 5 eyes, you can go to any one of them and spy on your own people. Now, technically, I can't spy on my own people, but I can go to Australia and say, hey, can you spy on my people? And that's who would say, yeah, sure, good on you, mate. And they'd actually say mate because Australians like that word. Now, FVEY is 5 eyes, so that's what they're talking about. 702, non-702, 5 eyes, non-5 eyes. We're spying in the insert the campaigns, right? They're spying. So one of the questions they're calling out is like, well, who was doing the spying? Who authorized the spying? I mean, it wasn't just Brennan, but obviously Brennan was a part of that. But we get the wonderful renegade that comes back. And for those of you that maybe don't know this, or for those of you that do know this, it's a nice little reminder. But that was Obama's, his name for his social service, his Secret Service. All the presidents get to make up their own little names that they go by for their own Secret Service. And renegade was Obama's choice for himself. So what is a renegade? It's a person who deserts or betrays an organization, country, or set of principles, or possibly all the above. He's also similar to things like a traitor, a defector, a deserter, a turncoat, betrayer, rebel, mutineer, quisling. There's a nice word. Get that on your Scrabble board. How about a 5th columnist? How about a renegado? They got some new ones in here. Tergiversator. What the frick? Where are these words coming from? I swear I feel like I just walked into the Twilight Zone. That's fantastic. So a lot of stuff has kind of been popping up around, this post, and what's a 702 and all that stuff. And there's a lot of information that's coming out about who the subsource potentially was. I don't know if it's okay to say the name. Certainly that individual that was the secret source whistleblower for Adam Schiff is on that same page, by the way, and I know you're not supposed to say that person's name. And I'm wondering if that's the case of the subsource as well. If you go to this QAnon post and you link in on this particular link, you'll see quite a lot of information. You can pause it real quick if you want to see it all, but there's quite a lot of information in there that's very, very relevant. And it's not directly there. You got to scroll down a little bit. But it seems that all these people sort of knew each other. Were kind of tied together. Fiona Hill, along with the subsource, there was this whole slew of insiders that were kind of taking care of each other. And Adam Schiff was a part of that little thing. And of course, he was the one that talked about how, the intelligence community has 6 ways from Sunday or whatever to get even with you. So from day one, that was always going to be the case, it seems like. So that's kind of what's playing out. Over here, 4604. Batten down the hatches. They're sharing this same wonderful video. We've seen this dozens of times throughout the years. And it's just a picture of an AC-130 gunship just going to town. Someone's lasing the target and just da-da-da-da-da-da. So it's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy little, so as you can see, someone's lasing the target. Basically, all I'm saying is batten down the hatches. You've got some serious, heavy incoming, and you better get ready for it because it's not going to go well for you. Now, things got a little strange. And I went down like 5 rabbit holes on this particular day. I can't believe how much time I've spent. But Chris Ray, 4605, sleeper, right? And we go back to, if I can remember her name. Was it here? Yeah, Jennifer Boone, right? So he's the one that, he hooked up the Boonster. He hooked her up, right? And then almost immediately after, we get this follow-up post, which not trying to give it away, but I think Q posted this, or someone else did this, and Q was responding. It's probably what it was. But someone's obviously upset with Ray. And the thing that Q has told us on numerous occasions is Ray is a sleeper, trust Ray. He's said this a lot, said this way back. I mean, he said this a few times. And obviously Ray's been there since, June 2017, right? He's been around for a while. He replaced Comey. So obviously we had to get rid of Comey. So what's going on? Is this guy a sleeper? Is he not a sleeper? Is Jennifer Boone on our side? Is she not? There's a lot of questions around that. I think Q was basically saying he is. And I think the fact that it's being brought up now implies that that might be part of this week. That might be part of the unraveling that's beginning to occur. The fact that this guy's going to come out and basically say he's been doing some investigations of his own quietly in the background. And here's what he's found out. My guess is we've got more to come with Ray, that he's been lurking in the shadows, that he's been working in the shadows, that he's been being a patriot, being a white hat, but not really stepping in the limelight, not stepping in the spotlight. And really, as a lot of people know right now, just stepping into the light and saying, I'm pro-Trump, will get you attacked. Will get you attacked. So, to a large extent, sometimes when you're not ready to make your move yet, sometimes it's not a good idea to hop into that limelight until you're ready. And so I think that's kind of what's going on with Ray as well. 4607, 3 stars, referencing Flynn again, I'm pretty sure. Are you ready to serve once again is the question. I want to point out the times here. July 19, 2020 at 11:06 p.m. Eastern Time. 11:06 p.m. Are you ready to serve again? And we got, 24, so what was that? About 22 minutes later? No, 18 minutes later, we get an acknowledgement. Acknowledged, God bless America. Now, what was Q acknowledging? Well, what Q was actually acknowledging was General Flynn. General Flynn made a small change to his Twitter. And this lady, and this is interesting because there's a couple points in the very last slide we're going to get to. If you look at the dates, it'll mess with you a little bit. But if you look at her, she's got 8:14 p.m. I'm going to assume that's Eastern Time because that's about the only way the math works. But we're over here, 11:24. Actually, that's not Eastern Time. Sorry, it's some other time zone. But we got 11:24 is when it was acknowledged. We got 11:06 where it was sent. And we've got a God Bless America header on General Flynn's account at 8:14, whatever time zone this is. So at the point where he basically changed his header to God Bless America, that's what QAnon was referring to. Sorry, let's go back here. That's what he was referring to as acknowledged, God Bless America. And he was giving the response back that he had shared on his page. Again, that was that almost proof, right? So Anons, take note, you have a rival. Now we've got a little bit more fun kind of going in this one. I think the rival is this wonderful lady that's sharing this post. Dancing Patriot. So this is very, very cool how General Flynn was able to respond. Now, there is a post here, and this is the 14610, it's the most recent. And this one can throw some confusion. It did for me. I spent way, way, way too long on this to finally come to the conclusion that someone got a picture of it, and 8:14 is the screenshot. So, all right, okay, so what happened? Because 11:42, they show that the tag was modified. Now, I don't know what his post looks like right now, General Flynn's. I probably should have pulled that up. So after comparing the two, I'm not sure if there's a big change, but that all being said, they show 11:42 as the time, but we've got a lady that took a picture. So again, the time frames are strange, and this is, I'm assuming, is Eastern Time, right? But when he supposedly made his changes, right? So 11:06, then to 11:24, God Bless America, acknowledged. And then we got over here, it says 11:42. Like, the numbers don't add up. But again, we've got a screenshot here where it's 8:14. When you look at his page now, I don't know. Maybe he made a small adjustment to the picture. It's the best thing I got right now. The fact is, I mean, we've got a picture here. General Flynn's definitely coming out here. Where we go one, we go all. General, real American hero. And they're asking him if he wants to serve. I'm figuring that's probably coming into play as well. He's going to become somebody that's going to be back into the fold with President Trump. So a lot of things are going on, and I still say a lot of information is coming to the forefront. 4610 is the most recent post we've got. A lot of things are happening, and it's being brought to our attention. It's not even a trickle anymore. It's coming out at a much quicker pace, and if you think about it, we're heading into August, folks. We've got 3.5 months, really, of real fun ramp-up time before things start to get really serious, and the red October that we've had hinted at starts to happen. So we'll see. It's going to be a very interesting October this year for sure. And obviously this is going to be one of the most historic presidential elections in our entire history on this planet, in this country. So it should be a very exciting time indeed. I appreciate each and every one of you. Where we go one, we go all. It's On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.